Hello and welcome back to Sports Talk with Dad. My name is Kyle, and as always, I cannot call this Sports Talk with Dad without the man sitting next to me. A man who was alive when hockey was brand new. My dad, Tim.
I think I was around when the goalies didn't wear face masks.
Yeah, well, I mean, look what they wore in 1980 U.S. hockey. I mean, a piece of plastic.
So
I guess it's better than nothing.
I met the guy. I can't forgive me for not remembering his name right now, but he was a goalie for the Badgers hockey team in the 70s when Bob Johnson was there and they were winning national titles. I talked to him about the mask. We were both at a party, and he said, I said, does it help
The Mask
at all?
is a good movie. I mean, it's a good conversation.
True. I said, does that thing you wear help at all? He goes, no, it's awful. I feel everything that comes through.
I bet.
So I'm glad they went to the new one that they have now.
Yes.
Looks a little bit more protective.
Well, I'm sure it helps your vision, too. I can't imagine even seeing with that mask on. Not only does it do nothing for you, but it does nothing for your vision either.
I feel like viewing a game as Batman would view the world.
I will tell you, goalies are some of the most athletic athletes to walk this planet.
As opposed to athletic non-athletes.
Well, yeah. You know what? I'm mad at you now. We're fighting. We do have an amazing show here for you, though, that I am very excited about. We actually have some special guests coming on from the Breakout Session, JC and Mogey, to discuss the Stanley Cup Finals. But before we get into our guest, I have to be more excited for this U.S. Open than I've been in a long time.
There is so much drama going in. You know, Dustin Johnson's coming back from playing in the silly season tournament in London.
There's teams now. Essentially, golf has always been an individual sport.
It still is.
But there's teams now. There is a LIV tournament team, and there is a PGA Tour team. And I am so excited because the trash talk has already begun.
Rory McIlroy was one of my favorite golfers before. He is now my hero. He comes out after winning the Canadian Open and goes, yeah, I have one more than the guy that's playing in that silly tournament over there. So, I mean, it is complete trash talk.
Right.
Most guys are trying to walk the middle line, but other guys are just...
Forget it.
No.
Forget it. Trash talk time. I love it. I'm all for it. It's going to be interesting. I think the hardest thing you're going to see going forward as the LIV tournament continues, not so much this U.S. Open, but especially next year, is the LIV tournament's only playing 54 holes.
Correct.
The U.S. Open's 72 holes.
Yes.
If you're conditioning yourself to play 3 days and all of a sudden you have an extra day and 18 more holes added on, I think that's where the PGA Tour is going to just win all these Opens going forward.
Well, and on top of that, the LIV tournament, to make it even more of a silly season golf tournament, uses a shotgun start.
Yeah.
So it's not like you have to wait and then you have to go and the patience is tested throughout the 72 holes. These guys have got some real issues, and I do think it's right. Nobody's begrudging them for taking $125 million. Everybody gets it.
Nope.
However, if they want to be real golfers and have a real legacy,
right,
it's still the PGA Tour.
Well, I mean, right now the LIV tournament's setting them up to be a senior tour. I mean, as McIlroy said, you got a bunch of 40-year-olds over there that went. And if that's how they want to set it up to be, that's fine. But if they're going to actually compete with the PGA, and this is going to be as exciting as it is this weekend going forward, you're going to have to start playing 72 holes. You're going to have to start playing normal golf rules here. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to compete.
And that's going to be the question. I mean, they're not playing PGA rules essentially on these other tournaments.
No.
They're going to come over here. I mean, this one's not a good example because it's
just happened. They played one tournament. I mean, they're conditioned. That's why I'm saying next year you're going to really see the difference. And I don't, if you continue to condition your golfers to play 54 holes, you're not going to compete against the PGA Tour.
And is the Masters going to let Phil Mickelson? They said they would.
They won't.
And Dustin Johnson compete next year? I don't think they will. Could be wrong. And the PGA Championship, while it's not sponsored by the PGA Tour,
it is.
It's still the PGA. So I don't see them playing in that.
Got to let them play in the Opens because they're Opens. I mean, You and I could play in the Opens if we were any good at golf. But the other tournaments, you don't have to let them play.
No, and they won't. I mean, look, they're getting a shorter season. They're making a ton of money. God bless them.
Yeah, a lot of people watch. They had 70,000 Americans watching the Live tournament this
On
weekend.
YouTube.
On YouTube.
Okay, wait a minute. We've got a third of that audience right now on our little YouTube channel. If they only got 70,000, that's not a lot.
It is. Are you kidding me? How much did you watch the Canadian Open?
Yeah, I did actually.
I didn't.
I watched a lot of it.
Well,
I never
You're
tuned
old.
in. I never tuned. Cannot be your default.
okay, let me ask you this. How much of it did you watch, and how much of it did you fall asleep to while watching?
I watched it. Oh, I did not.
I've never seen you watch a golf tournament where you're not napping halfway through.
Okay, I'll give you that. I did.
I've watched the Masters with you on the last day and had to wake you up for the 18th hole.
That's not true. Not true.
That is
I am
true.
right there.
That's happened. It's
Never
happened.
happened.
That's what golf is. My wife asked me why I watch golf, and it's because I need a nap. I mean, most
Okay.
of it's boring.
Golf is boring, but hockey is the greatest playoff in sports, and I can't wait for the Stanley Cup to start.
I can't either, and that's going to transition us to this right here. So we are very lucky today. We are talking Stanley Cup, and we have the joy of having JC and Mogey from the Breakout Session Podcast to be here and talk hockey with us and really talk Stanley Cup finals. But before we get started, I have to do one thing. I have to make sure it is known that the Lightning are going to win it all. So let me ask you this. With the Lightning having a three-peat soon coming, why are they officially the greatest hockey team to ever play the sport?
Oh, I don't know if you can really say that, to be honest with you. There's a couple other teams that have won more than 3 in a row. Islanders come to mind. Montreal Canadiens come to mind. Edmonton Oilers come to mind. So I think you got a little ways to go before you can really.
Yeah, but let's be honest. No bias here. The Lightning are better. You know, it's just how it goes. Stamkos is the greatest player of all time.
Okay, here's a real question, though. In modern hockey, and I mean, I grew up watching Wayne Gretzky and those Oiler teams that they had. There hasn't been a three-peat since that era. Is this one of the better teams in the last 30 years?
I would have to say that based on their lineup, they have got a force to be reckoned with. Just their goaltender alone.
Vasilevsky.
Yeah. Vasilevsky is by far one of the top tier goaltenders to ever strap on the pads.
Yep, very true.
And the Avs are going to have a brick wall to try and get through with him. And Stamkos, you've got a leader that when they're down, he's the first one to be the force to reckon with. He's not afraid to drop the gloves and show his team who the leader is. He'll end up in the penalty box, and then he'll come out and score a goal. So do they have a leader? Absolutely.
Yeah, they definitely do.
So greatest player of all time. I mean, that's all I'm hearing repeated is
He's a Hall of Fame. He's going to be a Hall of Fame player. So I
agree with.
What's Tampa Bay going to have to face when they're going against Colorado's goalie?
Well, who's going to play goalie for Colorado? That's the big question right now. Is it Kemper or is it Frankels, right? They say Kemper's coming back from that eye injury, but who really knows for sure? The NHL plays really close to the vest on these injuries. They don't talk too much about what they are. They don't really specify, although with Kemper, the eye issue has been spoken about. But
so what happened to Kemper? What happened to his eye? How serious is that injury? Because really, like you said, they're playing it very close to the vest. They really haven't talked about it.
So for goalie masks, they've got kind of like the cat eye design. And way back when masks first came out, that was a ProTech design. And the big issue with that was you could get a stick in there. Not the butt end of the stick, but the actual blade. And that was my understanding, was the blade got in there. And they didn't tell us exactly what happened. Like, they're not going to tell you.
Right.
I will tell you that the Avs have got a 1-2 punch, though, when it comes to goaltender, because both of them have been playoff tested. Both of them have, a litany of wins under their belt. So if Tampa Bay loses their starting goaltender, I'm going to have to lean towards the Avs.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. They've
So you're
got
leaning towards Tampa Bay right now?
Towards Tampa Bay right now, only because I got more money on that. And, you know, from the standpoint of a money aspect, go Tampa Bay.
Okay.
However, on the flip side of that, you've got a defender on the blue line for the Avs by the name of Eric Johnson, phenomenal hockey player out of the state of Minnesota, whose uncle plays old-time hockey with Mogey and I. Wow. So I've got that in the back pocket, as I'd like to see a little bit of him, you know, in the plus column when it comes time to show up on the ice as well.
You and I are the same age. It's very old-time hockey at this point.
Yes,
So,
it is.
Yeah, but
here's
having a
my
ball with
question.
it.
There's always the question, rest versus just keep playing. And Tampa's had some tough series. They've only going to get about 3 days off. I think the Avs have been resting for now almost 8 days before the series will start. Who gets the advantage on that?
Yeah, well, you know, I looked at that today when I was getting ready for this. You know, so Colorado played 14 games only. Tampa played 17. Tampa went 4-3 against Toronto, and then 4-2 against the Rangers before, you know, after they swept the Panthers. So I took a look at the scoring, and before I get to the scoring, you know, you wonder, does it matter if you get some rest? You know, they've got a couple of guys dinged up. They've got Nazem Kadri, you know, that they're hoping to get back. And they've also got Andrew Cogliano, who's a critical cog in the lower six forwards. Can he come back? And if they can come back, you know, with that 8-day. I took a look at the scoring, and through those 12 games, Colorado scored 65 goals, and Tampa Bay scored 52 in 17 games. And the goals against was Colorado had 40 goals against, and Tampa Bay had 41. So you're looking at, you know, with way fewer games, 3 fewer games, they scored 13 more goals than the Lightning. So I just don't know how the Lightning are going to be able to fend off that offensive juggernaut that they have. You know, starting at the back line with number 8, Cale Makar, who I'm hearing now is they're talking about him as the best player on the globe right now.
Well, let me ask you this, because I was watching the Rangers versus the Lightning. The Lightning were able to score 5-on-5. The Rangers only scored if they had a power play for the most part. How is that going to be when we get to this matchup? Is it going to be a 5-on-5? The referees seem to have been letting them play a lot during the last series. I don't know what they'll do in the finals, and I've heard refereeing might even be an issue in the finals.
Well, let's hope not. You know, the best game is the game that you don't even notice the referees on the ice.
True. Yep.
And so let's hope that the referees continue to allow them to play. Injuries, you know, aside, you don't want any injury potential penalties let go. Those are the things that will dictate a game if a player gets injured. So you want the referee's arm to go up in those situations. But aside from that, let them play. It's going to be a physical game. Both of these teams have got size, and they've got individuals that can handle the puck. And when I say handle the puck, that thing's flying.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, magicians.
I would not want to be, you know, head high when Stamkos lets one fly. Okay? I want to be ducking and weaving out of the way. But aside from that, getting back to the rest theory, I agree. It's going to be tough. The Lightning have endured a lot of physicality over the last few days while the Avs have had their rest. In the same sense, do you keep that steamroll going now? Is that break going to be too long? I'm going to side with the fact that if you've got that steamroll going, it's going to continue to go. So the Avs are going to have to come out really hard, quick, to shut that down.
One thing I've been thinking about with the Avalanche is they've kind of been the chosen ones this whole year. You know, they were picked to go to the Stanley Cup Finals. They were picked by a lot of people to win the Stanley Cup Finals. And, you know, they've had some times in the past that they've gotten close. And they start in Colorado on Wednesday. So I'm thinking to myself, you know, these are professional guys, and they've got to back up the hype now. Okay, here's your chance, boys. You know, everybody talked about this. Now here you are. What are you going to do about it? So, I mean, these guys are are professionals. Their coach is a great coach, Jared Bednar, and I think he's going to get the guys wound up and ready to roll. And on Tampa Bay side, if they steal one or two from Colorado, in Colorado, look out. Who knows what's going to happen then.
Now, you mentioned home ice or Colorado being there. How much does Colorado have home ice advantage? Obviously, that air's thinner up there. And Tampa is one of the best home teams in the league over the last few years. How much is home ice advantage really playing into this matchup?
Oh, I'd have to say it'll be significant. The Avs are going to, assuming it goes 7 games, are going to have a 4-3 advantage in home ice. And you're right, thinner air is going to take its toll. But if I'm a trainer and a coach, I'm going to prepare my team for that. But still, you've got that. You score a goal and you've got that crowd in your corner. I've been to the Tampa Bay rink, actually with Carnes, and it's a great place to watch hockey. And I've also seen Colorado play in person this year in an away rink in Las Vegas, and they were down, and their physicality came through. I wish I could tell you if there's going to be an advantage here for home ice or not. All I can tell you is, both teams are going to be prepared. Moke?
Well, there's always an advantage for the home team because they get the last change. So they can decide the matchups that they want. So Tampa Bay puts out the Stamkos line, and Colorado can counter with whichever line Bednar chooses to put out there. So that's a huge advantage, in my opinion, for a home ice team.
You had mentioned the air in Denver, and I've been to the arena and saw a game way back in the day. But what's Tampa going to have to do? Are they going to change their lines quicker than they normally do? Or how do they adjust?
That's a good question.
I wondered how JC was going to answer that one. Maybe, I don't know how they're going to do that.
Yeah. I'm not even going to pull something out of my butt for that one. I don't know.
All I know is Amalie Arena is the loudest stadium.
And really crazy.
And Tampa is make no mistake, it's a Lightning town. It's not a Buccaneers town. It's certainly not a Rays town. They sell out for every game. That arena is rocking for every game. Colorado's going to have their hands full having to come in and try to steal one from them in their home race. Home race? Amalie Arena.
Home rice. I mean, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah. House fried rice.
And I will tell you that history shows that although the top 2 or 3 lines perform, the 4th line can be a difference maker. The 4th line all of a sudden comes out of nowhere and grinds in the corner, and that puck pops out and they slap one in. And both teams have got great 4th lines, but I'm anxious to see that as to who the grinder is going to be in this case that's going to make that difference maker on that 4th line.
So what do you think?
They both have some unbelievable high-end talent in their first 2 lines for sure. I'm looking at the bottom 6. Sometimes your best defense is keeping the puck in your opponent's end while you're on the 3rd and 4th line, and you keep their studs away from attacking. You let them defend, and then the change comes. Your top line comes out against one of their lower lines, and boom, you just made yourself an advantage. So JC's right. He said 4th line. I think 3rd and 4th line are both critical. They've got to establish some type of ozone pressure and puck possession.
Now, you mentioned Avalanche they're just a scoring machine, right? I mean, they're putting up goal after goal, where the Lightning might have the best goalie in the league. Where is defense going to play into that to make sure Lightning are getting the support that they need to make sure the Avalanche get slowed down on the offensive side?
That'd be a good question for the defenseman.
Clog the lanes. The Lightning defense have got to be the shot blockers. They're got to be down on one knee. They've got to be the ones that are willing to take a risk to make sure that puck doesn't make it through. Because as we've seen, Vasilevsky has over and over again stopped numerous shots, but he's human as well. And there comes a point in time where the odds are going to be, you shoot 30 pucks at him, one of those is going to go in sooner or later, right? So the defense have got to shut down the shooting lanes and have got to be covering for him. And that's the big thing.
I agree. So, as well as trying to keep the puck on the perimeter as much as you can. Don't let them get it into the slot area.
Okay,
keep
so
it
it's
wide.
prediction time. Who's going to be the team to steal one at the opposition's arena, and who's going to win?
You know what? I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say Lightning in 6, and they're going to split the first 4 games.
Wow.
And Mogey's writing notes here.
I'm writing it down because I'm going to hold him to it. So he's got Tampa Bay in 6. I'm going with Colorado in 6.
You don't think we're going to get to a game
What about
7?
you guys? Yeah, I would love to see a game 7. But I don't think so. There's too much of a juggernaut here on both ends that somebody is going to break, and it's going to happen in 6. And
So either way, this is ending in Tampa.
Sounds like it.
Yes.
If
correct.
it doesn't go 7, of course.
Yeah.
Let's
Or
hope
if it only goes 5, it'll end in Colorado.
it won't be 5. This is going to be a long series,
Just
I
saying.
think.
How
I
much
really
do
think
you
it's gonna
think?
come down to goaltending.
You know, last question on this. Obviously, we started this interview with talking about how Tampa's the greatest team to ever play hockey, right? Now, with the 3-peat coming, how much does that experience make a difference? Because Tampa Bay is really coming back with a lot of the same team, and the Avalanche have a lot of guys that haven't been here before. How much is that going to benefit Tampa? Or at this stage of the game, it really doesn't make a difference?
Well, I don't see how you could say that it doesn't make a difference. You know, being there and not being there, that's a huge difference. And the fact that the majority of the Lightning players have been there twice, they've been there, they've done that. They don't panic. Cooper doesn't panic. You know, they've got a solution for everything. They've got an answer for everything. They've been through everything. And I think that's the huge difference between them and Colorado is just that experience. You know, obviously both great teams. I think Vasilevsky definitely gets the nod in the net. And if it comes down to goaltending, I think Tampa Bay is going to win it all. But I think there's a definite advantage for having a 2-time Stanley Cup champion against a, Stanley Cup champ that hasn't been around for a long time in Colorado.
And
I'm going to go back to your.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to go back to the statement about the greatest team ever and Stamkos being the best player ever. So I'm going to give you that Stamkos is a top-tier player. No doubt in my mind, a Hall of Famer. I'm going to tell you that he's not in the top 3 in my book. And then I'm going to tell you that Tampa Bay is a phenomenal team, but they've got a long way to go to match the Montreal Canadiens of past, the Boston Bruins of past, and heck, even the Oilers and the Islanders who have had many cups raised. But I will tell you that I will agree with you that they are one of the greatest teams, but not the greatest team.
Okay, but along with that, so if they win this Stanley Cup for 3 in a row, are they going into the season as a favorite to get back there for a 4th time? That's got to wear on you after a while.
Well, it depends upon how the offseason goes, how their draft picks go, and how their free agency goes. We'll have to see who they're able to keep, who they end up releasing, and who they're able to draft. Moog?
Yeah, I agree with that. You talk about that. So I'm thinking when I started talking, I mentioned they played 17 games, after the regular season this year. And I imagine the past 2 years, I didn't look it up, but I don't know how many games they played. So, you add all those games together and pretty soon you're at 50, 60 extra games, 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
These guys aren't getting any younger. They're all getting dinged up. We know how hard hockey is. So a 4-peat, although it's been done, huge odds, but hey, it's happened before. I'm sure it can happen again.
Let me ask you this, because a big conversation we have in the NFL, right, is you have the Packers of the 60s where free agency didn't exist, which were the best team of an era. And then you have the Patriots who have done it with free agency. Now, a lot of the teams you mentioned were before free agency were a thing in hockey. Do you think that makes a difference in talking about the greatest teams? And is this the greatest team of the free agency era?
I never really thought about it like that. With, the teams being the haves and the have-nots back in the day, the haves could pay, whatever the have-nots, you probably had to have a second job just to play on that team.
Right.
But now that parity in the NHL. You've got that hard salary cap, and the stars, they command a huge price. I think what it's going to be is Sidney Crosby is famous for taking less than market value, so he can leave some resources for the team so they can add some free agents or re-sign some critical guys. So if Tampa Bay, if they really want to keep this going, I imagine they're going to have some guys that are going to be willing to maybe take a little bit less than market value.
And I would have to say that, and as far as your question about in the modern era of free agency, I would have to give you a thumbs up that if not, they're doggone close to the top. I'll give you that one.
Greatest team of all time.
Do not encourage him.
Hockey experts, greatest team of all time.
Don't encourage him.
It's done. I win.
So let me ask you, is Braden Point going to be back?
I don't know, man. That's
number one center.
It's going to be. They're going to have to pay.
That could be a game changer.
It could be. I think you're right. If they win the three-peat and they're going to go for 4, that's the main piece they have to bring back. But it's a matter if they're willing to bring in the resources.
I mean him for this series. He's been out for, I think he got injured the game 7 of, was it against Toronto?
Yeah.
So he's been out. Is he going to be able to return for the Stanley Cup Finals?
He's going to do everything he can. And that's the other question, though. If he does come back, how does he fit in? Where they've had now 2 series, at least without him, will it make a difference?
He's Braden Point.
He'll be a difference maker.
Yeah.
I was going to say, does Devontae Adams make a difference in Green Bay?
We'll
yeah,
find
he
out.
does.
We're going to find out.
Good players make big differences. I think that's a swing point. I think if he's able to play this series, it's done. I mean, we're not even going to be talking about anything else. But if he can't, it's going to become an interesting series.
All right, guys.
Well,
JC and Mogey from the Breakout Sessions. We appreciate you joining us on Sports Talk with Dad.
Make sure you check them out. We're going to have them linked in the description below. They have an amazing hockey podcast. Honestly, it's where I learn most of my stuff about hockey. So definitely check them out on Spotify. Again, JC and Mogey on the Breakout Session Podcast, linked in the description below. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Hey, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having us, guys.
We'll have you back again either at the end of this series or certainly before the next season starts to get a preview of.
Well, if the Lightning win, it will be at the end of this season, so you can again tell me that the Lightning are the greatest team of all time. If the Lightning lose, we might pass on that conversation. So hopefully the Lightning win, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome,
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
We'll talk to you soon. That was an amazing preview. By the way, it was also our first interview on the channel. You did a great job, and they did an outstanding job previewing the Stanley Cup.
Make sure, again, you check them out. We have them below, the Breakout Sessions with JC and Mogey. I'm not kidding when I say I've learned a lot of what I know about hockey from those 2 guys. So make sure you check them out. It is well worth your time.
And the Stanley Cup playoffs are by far and away the best playoffs of all major sports.
I'm close.
The action is nonstop. If you can ever see a hockey game, a professional hockey game in person, but especially if you can go for the playoffs, you need to go. It is just so much fun. The action never stops, and the electricity in the arena is something like you'll never see in baseball or football stadium.
I agree. I tell you what, I was watching the Lightning the other night. And my son doesn't normally sit and watch games with me, and he was even engaged in watching it because it is so fast-paced. It is so physical. It is just an amazing game to watch. And I'm excited for these finals. You have a team that's been around for a very long time and had a lot of past success, and you got a team, like proven, by the way, is now the officially greatest team of all time.
God.
It was proven. They said it. They said it.
They
Hockey
said
experts said
era.
it. So as long as they get the three-peat, they'll come back on and once again reiterate that the Lightning are the greatest team of all time.
Look, we became Lightning fans when we lived in Tampa. It was just so much fun. I went as often as I could. And if you couldn't get into the arena, you sat outside and watched it.
Correct.
They flashed it up on a building and you could watch the games. It was great.
Yeah, definitely. It was a Deer District before the Deer District,
Yeah,
right?
it was.
You can easily go outside and watch the games, and a lot of people will be there with you. It's a fun atmosphere, and like you said, Tampa's a hockey town.
It is.
It's crazy how much of a hockey town it is, and I believe I figured out why.
Why?
Everybody from Tampa is from someplace else, right? Because
Very
people
true.
from Florida are smart enough to leave, and then all of us get convinced we'll see sunshine all the time and deal with hurricanes and reptiles that want to kill us.
True.
But everybody brings in their own team, right? You and I went down there, we were Packer fans already. You have people from Boston there that are Red Sox and
Bruin
Patriots fans.
And Bruin fans.
And Bruin fans. But not everybody has a hockey team. In fact, most people don't. Everybody has a football team, everybody has a baseball team, but not a lot of people have a hockey team. And you want to root for a team that's in your hometown. You really do. And so it was an easy adaptation, especially as the Lightning started to win some games, for a lot of people in Tampa to become Lightning fans.
Well, and we're case in point. I mean, there is no hockey team professionally in Wisconsin. We went down there and instantly became Lightning fans, and they are bigger than the Buccaneers, except when they win. You know, everybody becomes.
Well, now that Brady's there, everybody's paying attention. They're definitely bigger than the Rays, even though they have a winning organization. That's because of stadium location. But I mean, proof in point, this stadium's right off the interstate. It's easy to get to, and they make it an amazing atmosphere.
It's an event for every game. And, you know, talking about going to some place that didn't have a hockey team, that's what amazed me in the interview with JC. He and I grew up in the same town without a hockey rink, and yet he became an incredible hockey player. He reffed at a very high level, and he's still playing, which I don't believe he's still playing because he's in worse shape than I am.
Yeah, I mean, you're both pretty old. You were both alive when dirt was still new.
Wow.
I had to he told me before the interview that he agreed with you on a lot of your points and not me, so I had to throw out the old joke just to prove my point that that's why he agrees with you.
No, you agrees with me because I'm right, and for the most part, you're usually dead wrong.
Nah, no. He agreed with me that the Lightning are the greatest team of all time. So that's all that matters.
I don't think he agreed with that.
He 100% did.
He said in the free agency era, they're up there, but I would argue.
Listen, you had to read between the lines. He and I had that connection where I could read between the lines to what he was actually saying. It was like, I can't say this because hockey fans will freak out on me, but secretly between the lines, I agree with you. I understood it. He and I had a connection. It was perfect.
He's known you since you were in diapers.
Yeah, see, so connection. It's there. It's between the lines. Go back, rewatch it. It's there. It's subtle, but if you're paying attention, they both agreed with me that the Lightning are the greatest team of all time.
It was so subtle, it was not even close to being there. It was invisible.
You just said it was subtle, which means it was there. The greatest team of all time.
Okay, on to another thing. We've been asked since we started this show how we came about. You know, we're father and son, obviously. What made this show happen, and how can you guys be so happy and get along so well? Well,
I mean, we
don't always get along well. We're like every other family in the world. But for the next episode, it's going to be the show before Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to everybody coming up. We're gonna go a little bit serious. It'll still be a fun show, but we're going to tell you what we went through and how we got to this point in our lives. So that'll be a special show next time.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I think, like you said, a lot of people have been asking us off channel on, hey, what's the story here? You know, what you guys talk about, how you didn't always get along. You didn't always talk. And I think it's time we tell the story. People can hear it, and then we can move on back to fun stuff with sports. But I think for Father's Day, it's a great episode to really dive into, because not every dad and son get along all the time.
Not all the time.
It's not, but it's never too late to have a catch with your dad. That's been our slogan, that you screw up all the time.
I did.
So it's a great way for us to talk about how we came back together and how this really became possible.
And it's a story every family goes through. I mean, family is the most important thing in everybody's lives because those people love you unconditionally. They always are there for, at least I hope they're there for you and they have your back. But that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be some really, really rocky times.
Right.
And, you know, at times, even as a parent, you got to step up and go, I'm sorry. You know, what happened never should have happened, but it did. So we'll talk about it.
We will. Episode. And hey, if you don't have that family, come join us on this show every single week. We'll be your family. Comment below, give us a call. We love family. We very much have Irish Christmases. I don't think we've ever had somebody at our Christmas that wasn't random. Like since I was a kid, there's always been a random person because nobody has Christmas by themselves. So it's my favorite tradition.
I believe in the Irish saying, there's always room for one more.
Always.
And there's never a time when anybody should spend a holiday alone. So if you are alone, come on over to our house.
I always bring an extra gift because I know somebody at the last minute is going to show up at our house. And so I always bring something to make sure everybody has a present to open. But I think we have had a fun show. Thank you again to JC and Mogey and the Breakout Session Podcast for joining us and breaking down the Stanley Cup. Any last words before we head out?
Enjoy the Stanley Cup. Enjoy the NBA Finals. We didn't talk about it this time, but Boston has been amazing to play as well as they did. Golden State showed up last night. I do think it ends with the next game, but
Boston's going home. It's going to be, this could easily go 7. Boston almost came back and won that game.
they did, and that's what's been amazing about them. My favorite story of the week about the NBA Finals is Draymond Green's mother called him out on Twitter for playing just horribly.
He showed up.
He did show up. It worked.
You can say what you want about Draymond Green, but man, he shows up on the basketball court.
He does. He does.
Unbelievable team. I'm excited for Game 6 coming up. I think there will be a Game 7. I think Boston takes it at home, and we're going to see an amazing Game 7.
And we're going to see amazing Game 1 on Wednesday night out in Colorado. Go Lightning.
Go Lightning. It'll be a fun game. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been Sports Talk with Dad.
Bye, everybody.